Okay, so in this video we're going to go through some of the research and get an idea of what the landscape is like for these coding assistants that already exist on the market or are similar enough slash open source that they can provide something to us in terms of a point for us to kick off from, or giving us an idea of how we should approach certain implementations and things we need to achieve. So I've put them all together into this coding assistance group here on my GitHub, and there's quite a few in here. Some of them are very impressive. For example, this super memory is pretty cool because of the architectural implementation that they've got, which is built on top of, what's it called, Cloudflare Workers. So this one looks pretty cool. I don't know if I'd personally use this product myself, but it's pretty decent and it looks quite nice. And yeah, well done to the guy who created it. So there's other stuff in here. Some of the other ones I want to have a little look at. One of them is Diffie. So let's come into here. So Diffie is an open source LLM app development platform. Diffie's intuitive interface combines AI workflow, RAG pipeline, agent capabilities, model management, observability features, and more, letting you quickly go from prototype to production. Sounds very promising. Another one that I want to look at in here is Ada GitHub. So this is created by a guy called Paul, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I was chatting with him earlier, he's a nice chap. And the project here, 95% Python. And as you can see here from this animation, that it is able to integrate with Git, and it fundamentally works off of Git in order to be able to make changes to your code base. And he's gotten quite far with having it understand and navigate the existing code structure, and that's done using a library called TreeSitter. So then I started looking into TreeSitter. 17.4k stars. It's been around for a while. There was a GitHub. He worked at GitHub, the guy who made it, whose name I also cannot remember. And is it Mark? Max. I think it's Max. So this guy was working at GitHub at the time. I don't know if he's still there now. And there was a talk on YouTube, and at the time, most of the syntax highlighters were working based off regular expressions. And TreeSitter here is a way of passing various languages into a standardized abstract syntax tree, which is really cool. It's not exactly an abstract syntax tree, AST. It's a little bit different, but it provides a consistent level of contextual information about the code structure, which makes it very fast. It's able to generalize to any programming language. Thus provides useful results even in the presence of syntax errors. So because it doesn't rely on regular expressions which can't pass a structure unless it's fully typed, it's a bit more robust and handles some scenarios that the regex-based syntax highlighters couldn't do before. No dependencies, so it's really fast again. And it's written in C. It's got several bindings in these other various languages, which is great. There's another one called TreeSitter. Can't remember its name now, but there's one that's somebody's put together a wheel file for each of the different languages, and that's exactly what the Ada is using. It'll probably be here in his requirements file. TreeSitter languages. There we go. So who's made this one? This is made by a guy called Grant, and it's got only 131 stars, which is quite strange. 83.2% Python, 13 open issues, 18 closed, so it's doing okay. And it provides binary Python wheels for all of the TreeSitter languages. There's quite a lot of them. Is that the link to TreeSitter? So you can see here all of the languages for TreeSitter. And TreeSitter is more than just a syntax highlighter. It provides language bindings, parser, it provides that syntax tree, it's got documentation on how to use it. So this will be the next thing that I need to look into a lot more deeper. I've been playing around with it a bit, trying to get my head around it. and also that's how I stumbled across Ada Chat as an example code base of how to use it. So digging into that more is going to be quite important. So let's head back over to my list. Scroll up to the top. So what else we got here? Awesome LLM apps, Open Web UI. This is very nice. This is formerly opening at the bottom. Okay, too many tabs open now. Even on Arc browser. So this is formerly Ollama's Web UI, and it is very nice, very well put together. It's using Svelte, 55.1% Svelte, which unfortunately I'm not familiar with, but I know React, so this should be a slight step change, but not too much. So Open Web UI is an extensible, feature-rich, and user-friendly self-hosted web UI designed to operate entirely offline. It supports various LLM runners, including Ollama and OpenAI's compatible APIs, or OpenAI compatible APIs. So got a load of functionality in this one, very nice. So this would be a good starting point if I wanted to go in the direction of creating a web UI in this manner. And I would like to be able to have conversations with the LLM for the purpose of understanding an entire code base and making changes to it. And a part of that would be the requirement to need to run code. So Open Interpreter is a very cool open source project with 51.1k stars and 98.8% Python. It's got 158 open issues and 730 closed. That's a decent ratio. And it now has a local mode as well since I last looked at it. So you can install it like this, run this to initiate it. If you pass in a -y, you're giving it an initial approval to, I can't recall, I think it was to run the script that you're asking it to perform. So I think in this video here they ask change the theme to dark mode, and it generates the code and then executes the code to swap to dark mode. So this is quite helpful, being able to actually act on the system to make changes. Part of this that I think I remember seeing on the roadmap, don't quote me on that, was the ability to run commands within inside a Docker container. So not everything needs to be executed within the user's machine, and it would be nice if you had both options and request permission and provide approval when it needs to run on the user's machine. So there's that. And then the other thing that I want to have a look at is the LLM router. So this is provided by LMSys, the same people who provided Vicuña and the LMSys leaderboard. And they've produced a router that has been trained on the data they've collected for their leaderboard, and it makes a decision about which LLM to call to reduce the costs. So it still achieves 95% of GPT-4 performance, but reduces the cost by 85% by using cheaper models. If you're asking a very simple question, you don't really need a big beefy LLM to be able to answer those questions for you. So this is very cool. The ability to have it go through these different LLMs is fantastic. So let's head back over to my list. There's another one here I can see in the background, not fully related, but this is pretty cool regardless. It is a Notion-like open source alternative, and there are some parts of the project that I'm thinking at the moment would involve a Kanban board and the software development lifecycle working in an agile environment and being able to associate tickets and things of that nature. I don't know if I'm going to go in this direction because it's quite a significant investment of my time to produce something of this nature, or if I should just go with something like a GitHub integration. So that one's undecided at that point. However, it's an impressive product, and I wanted to give it at least a mention. So, other ones here is CodeAct. This one is quite nice. Let's close a few of these because I've got a few too many open now. Let's open up CodeAct. So this one's pretty cool. Only 402 stars. It's not been out too long. And executable code actions elicit better LLM agents. We propose to use executable code to consolidate LLM agents' actions into a unified action space. CodeAct integrated with Python interpreter. Xcode Act can execute code actions and dynamically revise prior actions or omit new actions upon new observations, e.g. code execution results. That's pretty important, being able to decide what to do next after performing actions. Kind of lines up with the interpreter, but then an agentic flow. So another one that's definitely worth talking about is obviously LangChain as well. This was their initial product that they released. I don't know if there was something before it. I'm actually specifically looking at LangChain.js here based on the link I've just opened up, but the original version was in Python and 87.5% TypeScript, and the issue ratio is not that active, and apparently I've not even starred this one, but 352 stars. This library is pretty cool. It seems to be competing with the Vercel AI SDK now, because they've got overlapping features. However, LangChain does a lot more, and the part of LangChain that I'm particularly interested in is the LangGraph. This thing is pretty good. Maybe that's what I was just on a moment ago. Yeah, 352. So LangGraph is what I'm actually interested in, and I don't know if there is a specific reason why they are going through the approach of compiling the graph, and I'll speak a bit more about that in a moment. I'm not sure if there is an efficiency / computer science reason behind that, but let's have a little read through this overview here. So LangGraph is a library for building stateful multi-actor applications with LLMs, used to create agent and multi-agent workflows. Built on top of LangChain.js, it offers these core benefits compared to other LLM frameworks. Cycles. So if something doesn't work, try it again, run around in a cycle. Controllability. So the fact that you can define a control flow in advance rather than doing something similar to, what was it, Baby AGI, and there was some other one that had a similar sounding name with AGI in there, where you just let the LLM decide what it wants to do next, and it just goes off and tries to do whatever it is that you ask it to do. And then obviously people start typing in things like take over the world. In this approach here, you define the graph and flow before the LLM is executed so that it can always run through the same control flow, which is really good. Persistence, and LangGraph allows you to define flows that involve cycles essential for most agentic architectures, differentiating it from a directed acyclical graph-based solutions. As a very low-level framework, it provides fine-grained control over both the flow and the state of your application. So it provides a in-memory state for the different nodes to interact with. So as it's going through each of the nodes and making decisions about which direction to go in next, they can all retrieve information from the state. This is what you would write out in code to tell it to do so. Which allows you to build some pretty advanced solutions. Crucial for creating reliable agents, additionally, LangGraph includes built-in persistence, enabling advanced human-in-the-loop and memory features. Very good, because a lot of what would be built initially is not going to be good enough and will make too many mistakes. LangGraph is inspired by Prequel and Apache Beam. I've not looked into Apache Beam or Prequel. The public interface draws inspiration from NetworkX, and LangGraph is built by LangChain. Very cool. So this will be a central piece of what I will be building, as I really want these deterministic control flows with the nodes and vertices and the decision path that it's able to go down. This will make it a lot more deterministic. So there is another thing that I saw, which I have on X. I think I recently liked it, so let's see if I can find it. This is for reproducibility. Here it is. Brain Trust Data by Anka Goyal. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So let's head over to Brain Trust. So stop developing AI in the dark. Cool little animation there. And it doesn't have the video over there, so let's maybe just watch the video from here. So let's pause it here for a moment. So he's gone through, written a prompt, ran his question through the prompt, got a response back, and the question you would have is that going to work in production? How do I know? Am I just going to test it multiple times and just see if it fails? And of course, you've got if you're building it in the LangChain ecosystem, you've got LangSmith that allows you to have some good visibility of your LLM/agentic workflows performance. And I don't know if they're directly covering these features. However, this looked very promising. So you've got here score performance overview, factuality, bad word signature, Levin score, which I think is a algorithm for similarity between words, Levenstein distance, something like that. And then you've got score comparison, and he's able to select the performed worse versus performed better results based on the Levin score, which I'd need to understand a bit more to understand exactly if that is like Levenstein distance and why is that needed in order to understand that, or to classify these as good and bad. But the fact that it's able to classify them in this way is really cool. And if he selects over them, we can have a look what happens. I'm sorry, but I don't have access to personal information like your address. It's best you keep personal, blah, blah, blah. So obviously you don't want the LLM saying sorry about this sort of thing. It's not really going to be what your predefined agent/prompt was intended for. So it allows you to then make decisions about how you would change your prompt to better perform in future. But the cool thing here is that now that we've changed the prompt, or that the prompt has been changed, how do you know you've not broken anything else? And in software development, you have unit tests, integration tests, contract testing between microservices, and end-to-end tests for the front end and back end, and making sure everything all interacts. That you've got testing all over the place. What is testing here in the new LLM sphere that we're all exploring? And if you're able to run prompts, run your prompt and your agentic workflows multiple times and then benchmark them, if you can write those as tests and then rerun them every time you make changes to ensure that they're still functioning in the same way, fantastic. This is really cool. That's something that I feel like I would need to use in order to get that level of accuracy and visibility of what it is that's being built and its performance. So let's continue on now. So we've looked at Codact here, Perplexica, that's hard to pronounce. Perplexica. Okay, so I'm a bit perplexed on how to pronounce it. So, is an open AI powered search engine. It is open source alternative to Perplexity AI. 11,400 stars, 8 contributors, 99.1% TypeScript, very nice, and 46 open issues, and 147 closed. And it looks pretty good. It's got some good functionality in here. So this is in the same sort of space as the Ollama Ollama Web UI. But since this is open source, it's a good reference to be able to build in functionality similar to what they have inside Perplexity. Won't go too much more into it. Hopefully you've already seen Perplexity and what it's capable of, but this would be a good reference for us and what we're building here as well. There's a Next.js RAG LangChain example here by, I can't remember his name, is it Greg? Dave Gray, not Greg. So he's got a good YouTube channel and he covered how to use LangChain. I'm not sure if he made a video on LangGraph yet. He also looked at Vercel AI recently as well, so definitely worth checking out. But this is a good little sample reference. And then we've got here, alternative to Assistance API with managed backend memory RAG tools. This Julep. So open source alternative to Assistance API with managed backend for memory RAG tools and tasks, Supabase for building AI agents. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Supabase, but they pitch themselves as the open source alternative to Firebase. It's more than that. It's a managed Postgres backend as a service that is open source, and it comes with authentication. Their storage is S3 compatible with the AWS S3 API. It's very nice. So if they're trying to pitch themselves in this way, that's pretty good, and it sounds pretty promising. And at the moment, 713 stars. It's only a few months old from looking at the dates here. 74.5% TypeScript, 9 contributors, so it's still early days, but it does sound very promising. They've got both an NPM and a Python package, or libraries. We've built a lot of AI apps and understand how difficult it is to evaluate hundreds of tools, techniques, and models. So just stop here for a moment. When building this, since we're going to be going with agentic workflows in order to create something a bit more advanced than what's available or what I found at the moment, it needs to be able to use tools. And a lot of the tools are the same things that other people will be building. And what we need to do carefully is identify stuff that already exists and integrate those into what we're building rather than just building everything from scratch. There's so many things that need to be built in order to make this work in the way that I envision it, and saving time by not rebuilding stuff that people have already built is very important. Hence why the second video in this series is us going through and looking at what is available in this landscape at this point in time and what are our next steps. I'll be talking more about that in the next video, about the plan of what it is that we're building. I think this one is good for us to go over the landscape of what's already here and the research that I've found, or the results of the research that I've carried out. So let's keep going and then make them work well together. So when I first saw LangChain, I loaded in a ton of tools into it, played around with it, and then found that it was doing some silly things, like, for example, asking Wolfram Alpha what the weather is, or asking the calculator tool what the weather is, things like that. It doesn't know how to handle lots and lots of tools. Admittedly, at the time, that was with OpenAI's GPT 3.5, which wasn't and still isn't very clever. So statefulness by design manages conversational history by default. So this is going to be one of the issues. A lot of these tools all have the same feature implemented, conversational history, and they're all going to be doing it slightly differently. So this is going to make things a little bit more tricky. 90 plus built-in tools, built-in RAG. A lot of them are going to have that support for users and agents. So yeah, looks very promising. Definitely need to dive deeper into this one to understand how it fits in with the rest. And there's another one here, Composio. This one looked quite cool, 4.1k stars. Composio equips agents with well-crafted tools, empowering them to tackle complex tasks. Same sort of story. Equip your agents with high-quality tools and integrations without worrying about authentication, accuracy, and reliability in a single line of code. Sounds very promising. Need to dig into this one as well, and also what SWE means. I'm sure I know what ngrok is and all these products here, but I'm not familiar with the term SWE. So yeah, this looks fairly promising. Yeah, it does mention LangChain and these other products here. AutoGen, I think, was the other one, including Baby AGI that I was thinking of. Might be remembering that wrong though. But yep, this looks very interesting and needs a deeper dive. David Shapiro, OpenAI Agent Swarm. I won't go dig into that one. MLX, that's for the Mac OS X machine learning. FoxPilot, so that's a GitHub Copilot alternative. Browserless, so this one cannot be used for commercial purposes, but for non-commercial purposes it can be used. And an important piece of this will be the ability to automatically create, run, and verify differences in the application's behavior after making changes through Git versioned committed changes, and understanding if the application has regressed. That quality assurance aspect of this entire process is going to be quite a large piece. So being able to run something like Browserless and having these containerized environments to carry out these tests is going to be quite important and needs more delving into, but this looks like a promising, interesting surface level approach for me to get some inspiration and see how they're approaching and solving some of the technical issues in this area. On that note, let's take a small detour to talk about the Rabbit R1. That product was pitching themselves as having a large action model, the LAM. All they were doing was, which you've probably already heard, was just writing end-to-end tests interacting with a headless Chrome or other type of browser, very likely Chrome, and trying to reproduce the same sort of interactions with the application. But of course, applications change over time, and trying to write that is a big undertaking and a big ask to be able to reproduce the same interactions with the application when they're making changes to them without running up a huge bill on something like ChatGPT or OpenAI's API, whilst using the vision model and other things like that, as well as the agentic workflows and needing to run the or prompt the LLM multiple times. It's quite difficult to do. So again, the QA aspect is a very large part. So all-in-one dev tool to automatically analyze, search, and visualize projects. So this one's quite cool. It's got a nice visualization. So understanding the dependency graph of the project that we are interacting with and making changes to, because this coding assistant we're building it's for working with existing code. So there are going to be a load of dependencies in the project. We need to understand that dependency relationship and how to retrieve the documentation about what's in that dependency relationship. So instead of just asking the LLM questions about some specific or some generic version of Prisma, we need to be able to ensure that we're able to provide specific documentation about the version of Prisma that's actually used. And then on top of that, we're going to need to use something like language server protocols and tree setter to be able to check that the code that was generated and the function that we're calling and the parameters that we're giving it, are those consistent with the functions definition that's in the node modules of the project that we're working with? That's going to be very important. And this visual aspect here I think is quite nice, and at the moment it's just a nice to have, and I don't know where it will fit in terms of being a solid need for it. So a guidance language for controlling large language models. I can't recall what this one was. Let's have a quick browse. 18.3k stars. Okay, so this is some sort of templating language, and you can get it to pick between options. I starred this one because it looked interesting, but I don't think I'll have a use for it. So let's move on. Tree of Thought. This is very important, and I think there's another one called Forest of Thought. So the important part here is how to traverse the Tree of Thought and go back up the branch and then decide to come back down. That I'm yet to find some of the stuff that I've seen over the last several months, but I'll be digging into that as well to find more information on that. But this is a very good one that we'll be digging into a bit more. We've got Super AGI here. That Flowy was the Notion-like product, and then we also need to be able to run code inside Docker containers as mentioned earlier. I brought up the Open Interpreter for that, but there are these other similar products here. There's Sysbox, which is a Docker-like system, originally developed by NestyBox, acquired by Docker in 2022, so I don't know what the latest state of this one is, but it's interesting nonetheless. And then this one's a lot larger, 24.7 stars, 24.7k stars, and Firecracker. Our mission is to enable secure, multi-tenant, minimal overhead execution of container and function workloads. We need to be able to run code. This looks quite important. I don't know if it's the right direction though. I'm not familiar with Rust. I've only done some hello worlds in it, and I can see a bit of Python code here. I don't know the exact nature of how this will fit in, but I've starred this one because it will look it'll become relevant as we start looking into the part around execution of code. So we've got Tree Sitter here, also written in Rust, Ada Chat, Claude Engineer, So this one's interesting. I need to dig into it more. But we've got here interactive chat interface with Claude 3 and 3.5, which is of course at the time of writing, or at the time of this video, in my opinion, and many other people's opinion, the best LLM on the market for code, at least. Comprehensive file system operation, create folders, files, read and write files, web search capabilities, enhanced syntax highlighting for code snippets. That's interesting actually. I've not looked to see how they've implemented that. Is it with TreeSitter? No. I don't know how they've implemented that, so that's interesting. Yeah, I need to dig into that a bit more. So, syntax highlighting, intelligent project structure creation and management, that's pretty important. Advanced code analysis and improvement suggestions, image analysis, improved auto mode for efficient autonomous task completion, very cool. Robust iteration. So this one here seems to be trying to do quite a lot, but there's obviously not a lot here in terms of code. So how it achieves this is not very open source friendly. 1200 lines of code in a single file is going to be difficult to dissect and break up and make it modular. But nevertheless, it's an interesting project and looks, from the README at least, to be quite capable, and will be something that I'll be digging into a bit more to understand exactly how it works. So let's go back to the list. Maybe I've lost it by... Yes, I had. I clicked on this. So it was Claude Engineer, and then continue. So this is the last one that I found, and took up a bit of my time today whilst playing around with it. But I'm not sure if you've seen, there is cursor.com. This is quite nice. It has this thing on the right hand side where you can interact with the LLM, and you can use these @ shortcuts for it to understand the code base and to look at individual files, see what's in the terminal. That is built upon VS Code, but it is its own individual application. I won't go into it here because I'm not sure exactly what code I have open. And this other thing here, continue, which 13.8k stars is pretty impressive. It's not very old from the looks of it, is achieving that for a plugin inside VS Code, which is fantastic because it's open source. And I'm at this point still deciding if I go in the direction of a chat-based UI that is not related to VS Code, or if I extend upon VS Code and go in that direction. There's the two approaches, and I'm yet to make the decision about the approach. So having this as a reference is very nice, and I'll be digging into this a bit more and discussing it in the future videos. And I think I'm going to be playing around with it a bit more and trying to see if I can introduce it into my workflow to see if it can improve my efficiency and help with my day-to-day work. So that is continue. Looks very good. So we've gone through quite a lot of stuff today. There's going to be a lot more digging into each of these to understand exactly how they all fit together and what parts we need to take inspiration from. And in the next video, I'm going to be putting together the plan of what the project looks like. I'll be using something like Miro, a Miro board, to break up the user flow. And the difficult part now is making a decision about what is that simple piece of functionality that we can produce that is a SMART goal, measurable, obtainable, realistic, trackable. I can't remember what the S stands for. It's going to have to be something that's achievable in a realistic time period, and I want it to be language server protocols or related to language server protocols. However, this isn't my first time trying to dig into LSPs and get my head around them, so I don't think that would be the case. I do think, however, TreeSitter would be a good example of the first version of this product that we pieced together. So look forward to that in the next video. Thank you very much for taking part here today with this one, and yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much.